Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving deep into the Indian Union budget for 2026-27. Now, this thing is way more than just a bunch of numbers. It's really a blueprint for the country's future. It's packed with some massive ambitions. So, what's actually in it for you and for the economy? Let's break it all down. So, right out of the gate, the finance minister set a really clear tone with this statement. The message is all about action over ambivalence. It's meant to frame this budget not just as a financial plan for the year, but as the next big step in a much longer mission. Okay, that's a pretty bold claim, right? So it really begs the question, what's the actual action plan here? Let's get past the big words and dive into the specific policies this budget is actually putting on the table. First things first, we have to talk about the vision. To really get what this budget is all about, we need to look at the one central goal that ties every single policy and every single rupee together. And that one central goal is Viksit Bharat, which basically means developed India. Now, this isn't just a catchy slogan. It's the North Star for all of the government's economic planning. The mission is to transform India into a fully developed nation by 2047, which, will be 100 years of independence. So, how do you get there? Well, the government has defined three core duties, or kartavya, to make it happen. You can think of these as the main strategic pillars of the whole budget. First, keep that economic engine running hot and make sure it's sustainable. Second, help people build the skills and capacity to be a part of that growth. And third, make sure the benefits of all this growth actually reach everyone. So, let's tackle that first duty, accelerating growth. How exactly does the budget plan to do that? Well, this next section is all about the massive, and I mean massive, investments designed to power up India's infrastructure and key industries. The budget uses this really great metaphor to describe its approach, the Reform Express. And the idea is that economic reform isn't a one-and-done thing. It's a continuous, fast-moving journey. This covers everything from simplifying taxes to cutting through that annoying bureaucratic red tape. And here's the fuel for that express. Just look at this number, a proposed capital expenditure of 12.2 lakh crore rupees. That is a gigantic investment aimed squarely at building the roads, ports, and railways that are absolutely essential for high-speed economic growth. But this money isn't just for concrete and steel. There's a super sharp focus on strategic, future-facing industries. We're talking huge amounts of money to become a world leader in biopharma, a renewed push for making our own semiconductors, plans to secure rare earth minerals, and even a major scheme for container manufacturing. It's a clear bet on where the high-value jobs of tomorrow are going to be. Of course, it's not all about the huge corporations. The budget also lays out a plan to create what it's calling champion MSMEs. These are the small and medium businesses that are really the backbone of the entire economy. The plan is to give them better access to funding, make sure they get paid on time, and offer professional support to help them scale up. Okay, so we've seen the big picture strategy, but how does all this economic growth actually translate into jobs and opportunities for everyday people? This next section breaks down what's in it for you. The budget gets really specific with its targets for job creation, especially in the fast-growing health and care sectors. The plan is to create 100,000 new allied health professionals. We're talking radiology techs, OT techs, that kind of thing, and to train 150,000 multi-skilled caregivers over the next few years. The budget is also rolling out a really interesting initiative called She-Marts. The goal here is to set up community-owned retail stores, which will give rural women entrepreneurs a direct platform to sell their products. It's all about helping them move from just getting by to becoming full-fledged business owners. And there's a push to open up a whole bunch of new ways for people to earn an income. For farmers, there's support to shift to high-value crops like sandalwood. In tourism, there's a heavy investment in training guides and developing brand new trails. And there's a huge push into the creative economy. The ABGC sector, that's animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics, with plans to set up creative labs in thousands of schools. All right, let's switch gears and talk about something that affects pretty much everyone: taxes. The guiding principle here, according to the budget, is ease of living, basically making the whole system simpler and less of a headache for the average person. So here's one of the most direct changes you might notice. The tax collected at source, or TCS, on overseas tour packages has been made way simpler. That old, complicated system with different tiers, it's gone. Now it's just a simple, flat 2% rate, which should make planning that international trip a lot more straightforward. And the simplification doesn't stop there. You're now going to have more time to revise your tax returns, all the way until March 31st. Some business deadlines are being staggered to avoid that last-minute rush. The TCS rate for students sending money abroad for school is dropping down to just 2%, and even getting certificates for lower tax deductions is being automated. The whole theme is less paperwork, fewer headaches. Now, with all of this spending, you might be wondering, how is the government balancing its own checkbook? This final section looks at the fiscal math that makes this entire budget possible. This chart here is really important. It shows the fiscal deficit, which is basically the gap between what the government earns and what it spends. The goal is to shrink that gap down to 4.3% of GDP. See, a lower deficit is a sign of a healthy, stable economy, and that helps keep things like inflation in check. And here's the other side of that same coin, the debt to GDP ratio. The target is to bring this down to 55.6%. In simple terms, this just measures the country's total debt against its total economic output. A lower number here means our economy is growing faster than our debt, which is a really healthy sign for long-term stability. So there you have it. We've seen the vision, the huge investments, and the detailed roadmap. The ambition is absolutely undeniable, a developed India by 2047. The budget has laid out the tracks for that reform express. The big question now really is one of execution. Can all these plans be put into action effectively enough to reach that incredibly ambitious destination on time? Well, that's the challenge that lies ahead.